Cleveland man faces charges this morning in a long-standing missing child's case.
It would be any parent's worst nightmare, having their child vanish and not knowing what happened to them. Naturally, you fear the worst. Some parents never see their children again, but others get the miracle they'd been hoping and praying for. Children can be found years and years later. From a 33-year search for answers to getting help from Netflix, here are 20 children who were lost for years and found. Number 20. Julian Hernandez. When Julian Hernandez went missing at just 5 years old in Alabama, his mother was distraught. Julian's father, Bobby Hernandez, agreed to take their son to preschool, but the pair never returned. Instead, Bobby withdrew cash from his bank accounts, took some of Julian's possessions, and fled. The police called what happened a non-custodial abduction and followed up hundreds of leads without any luck. 13 long years passed, and eventually 18-year-old Julian was getting ready to go to college. When he started applying, he discovered his social security number couldn't be verified. It was fishy. With the help of his school counselor, Julian found himself on the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children database. To say it was shocking was an understatement. Julian had solved his own missing person case. With this new information, the FBI was able to confirm Julian's real identity and arrest his father. Julian was able to reach out to his mother and start rebuilding their relationship. While there wasn't much information on where Julian and Bobby had been in the years leading up to their eventual discovery, they were found to be living in Cleveland, Ohio. According to the FBI's Cleveland division, Bobby and Julian had been living with a woman and 2 other children. Neighbors said the father was a pretty cool guy and they had no idea what was happening. They also said Julian was quiet and a good student. Number 19. Paisley Schultz. There are perhaps few things as traumatizing as custody issues in a family. Losing custody of your kids can be heartbreaking, even if that's what the authorities deem is in the children's best interest. But the biological parents of Paisley Schultz wanted to keep their daughter at all costs. This led them to take their daughter and ensure the authorities couldn't find her. Paisley was reported missing in 2019. At the time, she was living with her legal custodian in Spencer, about 3 hours from the small upstate New York town of Saugerties, where she was found in 2022. But finding Paisley didn't prove easy. The police had received multiple tips that she was living with her biological parents, so they executed a search warrant on Kirk Schultz Sr.'s home. The 57-year-old is Paisley's paternal grandfather. Both Kirk and his son, Kirk Schultz Jr., denied knowing where Paisley was. This was despite the police finding a bedroom with Paisley's name on the wall and a recently slept-in bed. Police had visited the property at least a dozen times since Paisley was reported missing, but the family just kept denying that she was there. While the police were ready to conclude that Paisley wasn't in the home, they noticed something strange about the staircase leading to the basement. Shining a flashlight through the boards, they saw a blanket. That led them to rip the staircase apart and find 2 tiny feet. Both Paisley and her mother, Kimberly Cooper, were tucked away under the stairs in a cramped compartment and had likely been there for several hours. Fortunately, Paisley was unharmed and was reunited with her legal custodian. Number 18. Melissa Highsmith. In 1971, 22-month-old Melissa Highsmith was abducted from her home in Fort Worth by her babysitter. Melissa's mother needed help with childcare as a single mother while she worked as a waitress. Eventually, a woman responded to the ad and collected Melissa from her mother's roommate. That was the last time anyone Melissa knew would see her for 51 years. Melissa's siblings and parents never stopped looking for her, but in 2023, they learned she had been living just 10 minutes away. After Melissa's children's DNA samples had been shared on a genealogy website, Melissa was finally confirmed as the missing child that they hadn't seen for more than half a century. Melissa was understandably shocked by the news. She had endured an absolutely horrific childhood and had no idea that the woman she called Mama wasn't her real mother. When she asked her abductor if there was anything she wanted to tell her, she said she had purchased Melissa off the street for $500. Patricia Lewis was the woman posing as Melissa's mother for all those years. Melissa had always thought that Patricia was her real mother, but that she regretted having her. She claimed there was no love or closeness in her family, with her mother telling her that she was brain damaged and, in her words, retarded. Little did she know that she had a big, loving family looking for her. Melissa said she doesn't want Patricia to go to jail, but wants her to be held accountable and to say sorry. Have you liked our video and subscribed to our channel yet? Well, do it now, or you'll miss out on other shocking stories like this one. Number 17. Holly Marie Clouse. There are plenty of mysteries out there. Sadly, we never get the answers to most of them. Holly Marie Clouse's story is different. The police have been looking for Holly ever since her parents went missing in 1980. Sadly, their bodies were found in a wooded area of Houston, but baby Holly was never found. Thanks to DNA tracing, baby Holly was finally identified as a 42-year-old Oklahoma woman. The connection was made on her late father's birthday, which Holly's biological family says is the best present they could have asked for.
No, ma'am.
I know.
That's right.
Her grandmother, Donna Casasanta, said she prayed for more than 40 years for answers and finally had some of them. Holly was able to meet her biological family in 2022, which is when they learned that a family had adopted and raised Holly. However, law enforcement says the family aren't suspects in the murder investigation of her parents. Apparently, Holly was left at an Arizona church by two women identifying themselves as members of a nomadic religious group. There are still many unanswered questions, but Holly's family is grateful they've finally found Holly. Number 16. Guo Shin Chen. Guo Gangteng is proof of the lengths parents will go to when their children are missing. When his 2-year-old son, Guo Shin Chen, was abducted by human traffickers from the front of his home in 1997, he would spend every waking moment looking for him. His determination lasted an incredible 24 years until he was finally reunited with him in 2021. In those 24 years, Guo had traveled 300,000 miles on a motorbike holding 2 banners showing pictures of his son. He endured broken bones in traffic accidents and damaged 10 motorcycles while traveling through 20 Chinese provinces. Still, Guo didn't give up. His story and incredible search for his son inspired the film Lost and Love. Guo said that he only felt like a father when he was hitting the road looking for his son. His determination won the public's respect and media attention. Guo also helped set up a website to help other Chinese families looking for their missing children. After finally finding 26-year-old Guo Shin Chen in the nearby province of Henan, it was revealed that he was sold. A woman police identified by her surname, Tang, along with her boyfriend, had kidnapped Guo Shin Chen and sold him to a family in the Henan province. His identity was confirmed through DNA testing, and 2 people had been arrested with his suspected abduction. Number 15. Jing Way. We all remember snippets of our childhoods, but Jing Way's memory of a small village ultimately resulted in him being reunited with his family after 33 years. At just 4 years old, Li was lured away from his home near Jiaotong in Yunnan province in 1989 and sold into a child trafficking ring. He was then sold to a family living over 1,000 miles away. Later, Li moved to southern China's Guangdong province. Over the years, Li had no luck learning about himself from his adoptive parents or by consulting DNA databases, so he turned to the internet for help. He thought long and hard about what he remembered from his home village and drew a kind of map with features like a small pond, a bamboo forest, and a building he thought might have been a school. He shared the map and an explanation to the video sharing platform Douyin. Finally, the police matched the features in his hand-drawn map to a small village and a woman who had a son who disappeared. DNA tests revealed Lee was the woman's son, and the pair were reunited. After Lee finally tracked down his family, he updated his Douyin profile, saying it had been 33 years of waiting, countless nights of yearning, and a map hand-drawn from memory. He then thanked everyone for helping him reunite with his family. Number 14. Sabrina Allen. Greg Allen spent more than a decade hunting high and low for his daughter, Sabrina Allen. She had gone missing at 4 years old during weekend visitation with her mother, Dara Marie Lawrence. As part of a court agreement, Greg was Sabrina's primary guardian. According to the website set up to find Sabrina, Dara has a mental illness, a personality disorder, that would likely cause her to act in her own interest rather than in Sabrina's. Greg did everything he could to find his daughter, including setting up that website, offering a $20,000 reward, launching a public campaign, and hiring a private investigator. Finally, after 12 long years, in 2014, the private investigator received word from a confidential informant that Sabrina was living with her mother in seclusion in an apartment in Mexico between Puebla and Mexico City.
Sabrina Allen and her mother in a small apartment just south of Mexico City.
Sabrina was now 17 years old and had been told that her father was a wife beater and a bad guy. Greg said these were false allegations. The police arrested Dara, and Sabrina was put under the care of a clinical psychologist in Texas. Greg wasn't able to see Sabrina right away due to the emotional trauma that she had been through. Greg also said that at that stage, Sabrina didn't want to know about him and that it would be a process. Number 13. Sun Zhou. Peng Siying and Sun Haiyang were absolutely devastated when their 4-year-old son, Sun Zhou, went missing from the city of Zhangjian in China in 2007 when he was just 4 years old. They did everything in their power to find their son, including selling properties to fund their research and offering a $31,000 reward for information. Finally, 14 years later, and after their search inspired the hit film Dearest, they were reunited in 2021. Sun Zhou was now 18 years old. Authorities had managed to track down the 18-year-old in the eastern province of Shandong. They also used facial recognition technology to identify a suspect accused of abducting him. DNA analysis confirmed Sun Zhou's identity. The suspect, named only by his last name, Wu, had been arrested in connection with 2 different child abductions. Sun's adoptive father and mother were released on bail pending a trial. In a shocking twist, Sun said he would stay with his adoptive parents since they had raised him for over a decade and because he wasn't previously aware of his true lineage. Number 12. Kimberly and Kelly Yates. It's heartbreaking enough when one child goes missing, but imagine being the father of 2 children who go missing. That was the reality for Russell Yates. His 3-year-old and 10-month-old daughters, Kimberly and Kelly Yates, went missing with their mother, Elaine Yates, in 1985 in Rhode Island. By 1988, Elaine was wanted on a child-snatching warrant. But that didn't seem to deter her from keeping the children from Russell. By 2018, Elaine Yates was 69 years old, nice, and living under the name Lena Waldberg. Her children were also living under different names and were 35 and 32 years old. They weren't living with Lena and were described by the police as being in good health. Rhode Island police had been working on the case for several years and finally tracked down the children after receiving an anonymous tip that led them to Houston, Texas. Russell said he hadn't stopped looking for his children and it was now up to them to contact him. His contact information had been given to the women.
I lived 30 years wondering what the hell's going on with how they, if anything's happened to anybody.
According to a report in the Providence Journal, Elaine left with Kimberly and Kelly when she found her husband with another woman and he hit her. In 1990, Mary Pigeon, who's Elaine's mother, received an order from the judge to reveal where Elaine and her children were. She refused and was sentenced to live in a correctional facility. Mary passed away in 2000. Number 11. Zayn and Mato. In 2012, Army veteran Stephen James had sole custody of his sons, 9-year-old Zayn and 12-year-old Mato. Zayn and Mato's mother only had supervised visits. In June of that year, she kidnapped their sons and moved from Texas to Mexico. There, they allegedly lived in awful conditions. Stephen tried desperately to bring his sons home, even getting court orders. Child custody and kidnapping are felonies in Texas, but law enforcement officers said they couldn't help. But James wasn't ready to give up and hired an international private investigator. Eventually, he turned to an Austin, Texas television station, KXAN News, for help. The pressure became too much for Stephen's ex-wife. Eventually, she agreed to bring the boys to a meeting point in Mexico. A sting operation was underway to get Zayn and Mato back onto U.S. soil. Finally, the call came that the operation had been a success, and after over a year, James finally had Zayn and Mato back. According to James, the boys had said they never went to the doctor or school. They were also thin when they came back and needed glasses. Now, Zayn and Mato get to enjoy simple life pleasures with their dad, like swimming and playing video games. Number 10. Xiao Gia. China has a problem with child abduction, and Xiao Gia was one of many victims. Xiao Gia was kidnapped in 1995 in Guiyang in China's Guizhou province when he was just 7 years old. After 26 years of being missing, Xiao Gia was finally reunited with his parents in 2021 through a campaign called Operation Reunion. Xiao Gia said he was playing at the park with his friends when two strangers appeared. They told Xiao Gia and his friends that they would take them to buy snacks. After getting the snacks, the strangers took them to a hotel where they locked them in a room and beat them. They were told to stay in the room, and if they tried to run for help, they would break their legs. Xiao Jia's family looked for him for a long time, putting up posters and looking for clues. They came up empty-handed. Finally, through the Operation Reunion campaign, Shenyang police were able to confirm Xiao Jia's identity with a DNA test and tell his parents the good news. And it's not just Xiao Jia's family who have received good news through this operation. Ever since the campaign was launched, the police have managed to resolve 85 child abduction or trafficking cold cases. Number 9. Kamya Moy. Shannara Mobley and Craig Aiken never got to know their daughter, Kamya Moy. The newborn baby was stolen from a hospital just 8 hours after she was born. It wasn't until 18 years later that the family was finally reunited, with Kamya not even knowing that the mother who raised her had abducted her. Kamya was taken from a hospital ward in Florida in 1998, and the police had no luck tracking her down. She was raised by 51-year-old Gloria Williams from Walterboro, South Carolina, who raised Kamya as Alexis Manigo. Gloria had 2 biological children and was accused of posing as a nurse to steal Kamya. Some news sources reported that Gloria had suffered a miscarriage the week before she abducted Kamya. It's believed that the truth came out about Kamya when the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children received a tip. Cops then found an 18-year-old with the birth date of Kamya, but a different name. It had been established with fraudulent documents. A DNA test confirmed Alexis was Kamya, but the situation was complicated. Even though Kamya was able to be reunited with her actual birth parents, she still had love for the woman who raised her and who she saw as a mother. Kamya said the ignorant ones won't understand, but her mother is no felon. She said in a Facebook post that her mother raised her with everything she needed and everything she wanted. Number 8. Kayla Unbound. We use Netflix as a form of entertainment, but who knew it could be vital in solving a missing child case? 6 years after a young girl went missing, she was finally found alive and well. 9-year-old Kayla Unbound went missing in 2017 after she was last seen with her mother, Heather, after a 4th of July parade in Illinois. Heather was a non-custodial parent and was due to meet Kayla's father, Ryan Iskirka, with Kayla at a scheduled time the following day. She never arrived. Police reports state that Heather was last seen putting her belongings into a car, with family members saying she had planned a camping trip and was meant to return to meet Ryan. After she didn't show up, the police were called and a missing persons report was filed. Kayla's disappearance appeared on an episode of the Netflix series Unsolved Mysteries in 2022, which helped bring her case back into the spotlight. Not long after, a local shopkeeper recognized Kayla, who was now 15. Finally, after 6 long years, Heather was arrested in Asheville, North Carolina on a fugitive charge. She would be extradited to Illinois. Number 7. Mao Yin. Mao Yin was 2 years old when someone snatched him from outside a hotel in Xi'an, central Shaanxi province of China in 1988. After he was snatched, he was sold to a couple with no children in the neighboring province of Sichuan. They changed his name to Gu Ningning and raised him as their own son. Finally, with the help of facial recognition technology and aged photos from Mao's childhood, police were able to track down Mao Yin. They also acted on a tip they received that someone in Sichuan had bought a child in the 1980s. At 34 years old, he was finally reunited with his parents. Mao's mother, Li Jingxi, said she never gave up looking for her son. When he was taken, she quit her job and distributed over 100,000 flyers to try to find him. She had also followed up on 300 false leads, with none of them leading her to Mao. After the police got involved and followed that helpful tip, they used a DNA test to confirm that Mao Yin was their missing son. Mao grew up knowing nothing about his birth parents or that he had been abducted. However, he was eager to get to know his parents. He planned to move to Xi'an to live with his parents. Number 6. Leang Jinglong. We often hear about children going missing due to abductions or child custody issues. Rarely do we hear about children getting lost and not finding their way back to their families. But that happened to Leang Jinglong. In 2005, Leang Jinglong's father, Liang Hua, brought his daughter from her hometown in Leizhou, Guangdong province, to Foshan in the Shund district, where he had a job. His workers' dormitory didn't allow children, so the 5-year-old girl had to stay with his brother in Zhongshan, a nearby city. Leang Jinglong got homesick and tried to return to her hometown. She quickly became lost before an older woman found her near a bridge and took her to the police station. She couldn't understand the officers since she only spoke her local dialect. They sent her to the Zhongshan Children's Welfare Institute, where she was named Zhang Fengmin. She remained there for 2 long years before transitioning to a foster home and eventually making her way to Chicago after an American couple adopted her. Meanwhile, Leang Jinglong's father never stopped looking for her. He quit his job and spent 7 years hunting before eventually having to return to work. 15 years later, Leang Jinglong, who was now named Kylie, started trying to find her biological family with her adoptive parents' help. She made a post on a website with details about how she went missing, and her father happened to see the post. After asking questions about moments she might remember, they finally realized they were father and daughter. The now 18-year-old was finally reunited with her father in 2018. Number 5. Qi Fang. Wang Minqing and his wife, Lu Denjiying, worked as fruit sellers on the streets of Chengdu in 1994 when their toddler, Qi Fang, went missing. Her father, Wang, had left the 3-year-old alone for only a short time while he went to a neighboring stall for change for a customer. When he returned to his stall, his little girl was gone. Wang and Lu wouldn't see her again for over 20 years. Lu said their daughter didn't know where they lived and only knew her parents' first names. They spent 6 months walking and biking around the city, but it was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Later, Wang became a taxi driver so he could explore his city of 14 million people looking for his daughter. He would also put a sign in his car window and print business cards with his daughter's information. He would even share his story with anyone who would listen. Local newspapers and national broadcasters picked up their story, but it was only in 2018 that the police decided to draw an image of what Chi Feng might look like as an adult. Finally, they were making some progress. Chi Feng was found living thousands of miles away from her parents in the northern province of Jilin. She was now 27 years old and had been told by her adoptive parents that she had been found on the road. She had always been curious about who her parents were. Number 4. Georgia Boy. By 2013, a 13-year-old Georgia boy had been missing for 4 years. According to local media reports, the boy was on a visit with his father in 2010 when he refused to return him after the visit was over. His mother lived out of state. Finally, in 2014, the 13-year-old was found behind a false wall in his father and stepmother's home. The boy had managed to use a smartphone to contact his sister online. She then told her mother, and the boy's mother contacted the police. The police had already visited the home to conduct a welfare check, but all 5 occupants claimed they had no connection to the boy. The investigators left before receiving that all-important call from the boy's mother. She was able to pass on important information about where exactly to find him. The discovery of the boy led to 5 people in the home being charged with obstruction, cruelty to children, and false imprisonment. Number 3. Carina White. Carina White always felt like something was wrong growing up. She even felt like she wasn't related to the family who raised her. Eventually, Carina started checking missing children websites. Finally, she found her own case. Carina, who had been raised as Nedra Nance, was Carina White, daughter of Joy White and Carl Tyson. She had been abducted from Harlem Hospital at 19 days old in 1987. By the time she realized who she really was, 23 years had passed. After she had found her own case, Carina contacted the website, and the website contacted Joy. DNA testing proved Carina was Joy's missing baby. During all those years away, Carina had been raised in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and Georgia. She said she didn't have the best childhood. Her mother was on and kept guns. She also once beat her with a shoe so severely that it left an imprint on her face. While Joy and her husband have since divorced and now have their own families, Carina and Joy were able to be reunited. Number 2. Hannah and Sky. 7-year-old Hannah Joy Lee and 5-year-old Sky Deborah Rex were reported missing in 2020 from their Waynesboro home. The Franklin County sisters were believed to have been taken by their mother, even though she didn't have custody of them. According to their father, John Rex, they went missing after he was granted custody after a divorce and custody battle. For nearly 3 years, John had no idea where his daughters were.
I want them to know that I haven't stopped trying every single day that they've been gone.
Finally, the girls were found in early 2023. Police arrested their mother, LaDasha Lee. The police wouldn't say where Hannah and Sky were found, but it's believed that they were in the Washington, D.C. area. It's likely that LaDasha would be facing custodial interference charges. Number 1. Savannah Harris Todd. Family dynamics are tricky. Even if parents break the law by abducting their own children, that doesn't mean their children won't love them. Complex is a word you'd use to describe the family situation involving Savannah Harris Todd. She was just 11 months old when her mother, Dorothy Lee Barnett, lost a custody battle with her father in 1994. After losing, Savannah disappeared from her house in South Carolina, and her US-based family didn't see her again. The FBI issued a warrant for Dorothy's arrest and has been looking for her ever since. Nearly 2 decades later, Savannah was found. She had been living in Australia. Reports state that Dorothy managed to flee to South Africa from the United States by using a fake passport. There, she married Julian Hernandez. They had a son who, in 2013, was 17 years old. Dorothy changed her name to Alexandria Maria Hernandez and tried at least twice to get a U.S. passport.
I think I got stressed. I think I got scared. I was very scared.
Later, she and her husband moved to New Zealand, became citizens, and then moved to Australia. So how did the authorities manage to track down Savannah? Well, a suspicious friend had provided a tip-off. At 53 years old, Dorothy was arrested by the Australian police. In court, 20-year-old Savannah held a sign saying, "We love you, Mom." At the time, the U.S. authorities were also trying to extradite Dorothy back to South Carolina to face charges of international parental kidnapping and making a false statement on a passport application. You can't blame parents for holding out hope for their lost children, even if law enforcement and others tell you there's no hope. These stories are proof that children and parents can be reunited. Can you remember any of these cases? How do you think you'd cope if your child went missing? It seems so awful. I was briefly kidnapped by my t-ball coach as a youngin', but that's a story for another day. Also, check out our other cool stuff showing up on screen right now. See you next time.